Hello everybody, Timothy Bailey with Project Learn and our video for today. Today we're going to look briefly at the present perfect and the use of the adverbs recently and lately. The present perfect, you may recall, is the tense in English where we use have, right? Either have or has and a past participle, right, of a verb. This picture is nice because it shows sort of what the present perfect is trying to do. It's talking to us about an activity that occurred in the not too distant past. So not all the way back a long time ago, but something closer or right up to the present. Now you'll also recall possibly that there is a continuous version of this that goes into the present. But this one sort of stops right at the present time, okay? So the present perfect uses the word have or has and the past participle. The base form of the verb for regular verbs is just the base verb with an ed. Irregular verbs, right, have alternate spellings, other spellings, some of which will have an n or en on them. Words such as spoken. Again, the verb is, or the present perfect is used to show an event that happened possibly once or multiple times. Let's look at a sentence here. Vivian has given up bread. Perhaps it's part of her diet. Perhaps she's just can't eat it anymore. For whatever reason, Vivian has given up bread. Here you see our auxiliary verb, have and has. We have a verb phrase, right? Collocation, given up, right? And she's given up bread. We could also add to this to say that she did this close to the present time. Remember, recently. Vivian has given up bread recently. Maybe we want to clarify, it didn't happen 5 years ago or a long time in the past. It happened perhaps last week or earlier this month, right? So she did this recently. Recently and lately. Both words mean not too long ago, somewhat close to the present. Again, for the tense that we're looking at now, the present perfect, it doesn't mean into the present, but it also doesn't mean a long time ago in the past. Recently can refer to a single event. I went to the park recently. Perhaps I'm talking about one time. Maybe it was this Saturday, this past Saturday. I have been to the park recently. Again, this sentence here, right, using our present perfect, have, and the past participle, been, could refer to a single visit. Right? I have been to the park recently. My brother had his birthday party there. That's a one-time thing. Right? Again, the context of the discussion might tell us more. But recently can also refer to multiple events. I have been to the park recently. Same sentence could mean more than one time, right? Perhaps every day this week I went. Okay? So recently, single event and multiple events. If we're talking about a single event, recently is often the adverb that we choose between these two. So let's look at lately. Again, same, both not too long ago, somewhat close to the present. Lately is more often used for multiple events. He has been a bit upset lately. Here, this sort of implies that whoever he is, we've seen him or been around him more than just one time to get a feeling that he's been upset. Okay? Have you gone out lately? Again, I'm not necessarily asking if you've gone out one time, but in general, have you gone out to the store to get groceries, to go for a walk, to check the weather, whatever. So I'm sort of asking about many times, right? Many days when you possibly could have gone out. Have you gone out any of those times? Okay. So again, lately, often talking about multiple occurrences or multiple events, where recently, not always, we'll often be talking about a single event. Now, there's good news and bad news. The good news is that recently and lately can often be used the same. You can take it out of one sentence and put in the other word. For example, I've been ill a lot lately. I've been ill a lot recently. You could use either word for this sentence. And what is this sentence saying? That in the not too distant past, so the last week, the last few days, whatever, I have been sick quite often, right? Quite often, a lot. What it's also saying is I am probably not sick now, because again, I'm not using a continuous, right? This sentence here, it'd be hard to even work in the continuous, but I'm really just saying from the now, like more into the past, I have been sick. The bad news recently and lately can't always be used the same. Right? Oh, this should say Tony's cousin, right? Tony''S. Tony's cousin had a baby recently. Right? Notice here we're talking about a single event, like I talked about before with recently. If we said Tony's cousin had a baby lately, that's very strange, right? So recently, a single event. Also notice, right, this is not the present perfect that we're working with here. So let's look at some more examples for that. He's gained weight recently. Here we have, remember this can be he is or he has. For our sentence here, it's he has. So auxiliary verb, past participle, and then we're using recently, the adverb. And again, this is more than likely because we're talking about something that's a process. Gaining weight doesn't happen one time, right? He didn't gain weight on Tuesday, right? He gained weight on multiple occurrences of eating or days. For lately, we might sometimes opt for a sentence that uses the continuous with the ing. He's been gaining weight lately. Again, here you can see that it's taken over time. But really, both of them are telling us that over the recent past, in multiple occurrences, he has been gaining weight. Have you been to class recently? Have you been to class lately? Both of them work here. In the recent past, right, before, now, the present, have you been to class? Paula's recently been promoted at her job. So again, this should be blue, right? The auxiliary verb has recently been, right? The past participle, and then a verb promoted. Okay, so here we're putting recently in between the auxiliary verb and been. Paula's lately been promoted at her job. Now, even if it's grammatically correct, which perhaps you could argue that it is, it just sounds strange. And there's a reason for that we'll talk about in a little bit. Until recently, women were not allowed to vote. This is a set phrase. It's a very common phrase. And the phrase demands or must use recently, not until lately, right? Women were not allowed to vote. And it might be for the same reason as this that we're going to talk about in a little bit. I've slept better lately. I've slept better recently. Again, in the near past, I've been sleeping better than the more distant past when I wasn't. Again, the continuous is possible. I've been sleeping better lately, or I've been sleeping better recently. Okay? Again, part of the reason we might use this is that, first of all, it goes into the present. It also shows more of the process, the continuous process of whatever you're doing, in this case, sleeping. Now, one of the things to look at, this is an n-gram Google uses these, particularly with written text. And you don't have to pay attention necessarily to the information here. The visual is enough. Of the two words recently and lately, recently is used far more than lately. Though lately does seem to be going up and recently down. Recently is still, as of about the mid-1800s, recently has started and been used more frequently than lately. Part of the reason lately feels strange now is it sounds old. The early 1800s and before, you can see lately was used more than recently. So when we use it now, it often sounds, because sometimes old words do, it sounds more formal than recently. So if you're having a conversation with a neighbor or just any kind of oral English, recently would be a better word to use as long as it does fit. Lately, you might see more in written documents. Here are a couple links that talk more about the present perfect in the different instances when we use it. Next time you're using recently or lately, or you have an opportunity, think about which one you're using and think about, am I using it in the right way? Is this the right word? I hope it was interesting and fun. Thank you and have a great day.